Hey, what is up? It is Blake from the Tone Mob Podcast coming at you with another video version of the podcast right here on the old YouTubes. Now, there are 300 and whatever, 30 something episodes available wherever you get your audio podcasts. I've been an audio only podcast for years. I decided I better break into video because that seems to be what the people want. So I'm trying to do more and more videos of the show. And on this one, I'm having an epic, almost 2 hour conversation with one of my favorite podcasters and one of my favorite dudes, Dewey from the Peer Pleasure Podcast. He came to the Shred Shed and sat down. We turned the cameras on and we had a great chat. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. We've started doing this kind of every year. This is our second year doing it, sort of a year in review. We get into some of that. We ask each other about our years and some of the things that have changed. He's got some big news on that front. And then we just kind of go. If you've listened to either of these shows before, you know we just kind of, we go with the flow. We make it loosey-goosey. So I think you're going to enjoy this episode. This is the first time I've done like multicam stuff. So, let me know if you like it. I did my best. I'm still trying to learn all this video stuff. So hopefully you enjoy this chat, and hopefully you go subscribe to the audio podcast wherever you get your audio podcast, Apple, Spotify, etc. I think you're going to enjoy this, and please make sure and check out Dewey's show, the Peer Pleasure Podcast. If you have not already, it is very good. He has talked to so many amazing people, and he's just a fantastic interviewer. So check him out also wherever you get your audio podcast. And without further ado, let's get into this episode. Dude, we're here in the Shred Shed.
Yes,
I'm trying to set up like I'm a professional, but I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, It's all good. We got multiple cameras.
Yeah, I don't even know where to look right now.
We've got microphones that have never been used before.
That's right. That's surely not going to be problematic
The
at all.
Rode wireless go-tos.
I use Rode headphones usually when I'm recording.
I use Rode everything.
You use Rode everything?
Yeah.
Dude.
I love it.
It's good stuff.
I love it. The only thing I used is the only things I use that aren't Rode is the MacBook, and then my boom arm is Elgato.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the low profile one. I had to order it from the Philippines or something to get it. It was
Really?
crazy, yeah. It didn't. They were sold out in America. So I found it. I thought it was a scam, but I was like, I'm going to try. And I found one used on Facebook. And I ordered both, and they both came at the same time. So I was like, all right, here we go.
So you got a backup.
Yeah, but they're good.
Which is not a bad deal. I've had a boom arm fail on me one time, and it's once you get used to having a boom arm. For years, I just had the little amp stand ones, and I just set it on my desk like an idiot, and it just took up so much room that I couldn't hardly work.
Yeah.
And I finally got a boom arm like 2 years ago. I'm like, what have you been doing? Why?
Dude, the one, especially if you're on camera, like in your face, like the one that's low profile, I think it's something white, the brand. They're like a lot of money.
Okay.
Like the ones like Rogan uses, or any of these people that are, Spotify
the big
some money.
times. Yeah.
Use, it's like JS White or something, and they're super hardcore. Like they're nice, but this one you can swing underneath you and bring up the mic, and it's not in your face. I prefer to have the mic there.
Yeah.
Because I like to talk across the mic instead of into the mic.
Yes.
Because I'm enormous and I breathe really loud. So if I talk across the mic, I find it's a lot less ridiculous.
Yes.
I had an episode with Liam from Dillinger Escape Plan in Philly, and we had just packed everything up at our Airbnb, and he showed up like right on time, but we're like had to be ready to go because the last hour we were there. I went back later and listened to it, and it's just me going the whole time because I was just holding the mic like this, breathing, and he's talking. I'm totally into it, but I'm just like.
So you're just cutting out just massive chunks of it?
No, I didn't.
You just left it in?
I left it. I didn't realize. So someone emailed me about it. Like, dude, are you like okay?
You're right. Yeah.
What are you talking about? He's like, you were breathing through that whole episode. Like you just ran a marathon. I was like, what? Went back and listened to it. I was like, well, I'm not taking it down now. It's already
it's too
done.
late. Yeah.
So, live through your mistakes.
That's true. Hopefully this whole recording process isn't a mistake because I've literally never done it like this before.
Yeah.
I've got to camera here. We've got a camera here. We've got a camera here. We've got mics we've never used. So what could go wrong?
Yeah. It's working. I can see it. It's recording.
I know. What's really going to drive me crazy is when I forget to turn off my heater and the noise comes on. That's really going to drive me nuts.
It sounds like a lightsaber firing.
Yeah, I'm just going to do that anyway right now, even though we're live. I don't care. Yeah, there we go.
We're in the shred shed. I can never say it. I tried so many times.
You've done it on podcast though. You've said it on.
Yeah.
You were like, oh yeah, my buddy Blake at the shred shed, and I'm like, yeah, he did it. But in person,
I can't do it. Maybe it's just when I'm in here. I can't do it. There's so much to look at. I was just telling you how good it smells in here.
Which is surprising because it's me in here just sweating most of the time.
Yeah, but maybe not today because it smells great. Like it just smells like a cabin, like a warm cabin.
I realized that maybe I'm going overboard just recently. Actually, I've realized it a few times, but the most recent, I had John from the band Hemorrhage on the show, and when he came on screen, because usually we're not live, he was like, "Where are you at?" I was like, "I'm in the shred shed, this is where I record." He's like, "I thought you were in like a guitar center or something." I was like, "Oh, well, I guess this is getting kind of ridiculous, but it's for work, so
you
it's
got
fine."
them all staggered.
Yeah,
like a guitar center. But
I keep thinking like at some point I'm gonna have to I like how this looks and I don't want it to go away. For the listeners, it's everything hanging on the wall, but I'm gonna have to angle them at some point. So I'm gonna have to redo all the stands so they kind of cock out, and it won't look as good. But it's either that or stop buying guitars. And
something
that's
also practiced by Guitar Center.
That's true.
But if you look at all the gear you have in here and tallied it all up of the quality of gear in here, you probably have a better quality collection than any Guitar Center has in all their gear.
That's true. I'm pretty picky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some of it has come from Guitar Center.
Most gearheads are pretty picky.
Yeah. Yeah, we're very particular. But, so it goes. But we're supposed to be doing a year-end wrap-up episode. That's the idea.
Did we do this last year?
We did.
Okay.
We
so
did.
It's tradition now.
I think we should do it every year.
Because it's not like I couldn't remember if it was last year or the year before, but it had to be last year because I was still at the Equavision office when we did it.
Yes.
Pretty sure. I think it was February maybe when I moved to the other studio. Yeah, something like that.
Or... No, I can't remember. I came to the other studio.
Oh, wait a minute.
What happened? I don't remember.
Why did you come to the studio?
I don't remember why I came to the studio.
You're dropping my guitar off.
That's what it was.
Put a kill switch in my guitar.
Yes. Shout out Sean from Gun Street.
Yes,
Woo!
Gun Street Audio. That was rad. Just throw it in. Yep, sure. Beep, 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 beep. It's awesome.
Kill switch.
Custom guitar with a kill switch. Felt like John 5. But
that can't be the only reason. Because I could have just brought your guitar to your house.
There was some other reason. I don't remember. Because you were dropping that by, but you were coming by for something. So I was recording. Was I trying to show you how to do something, how to use something?
Maybe I was just seeing the studio. Maybe that's all it was.
Maybe.
That probably is. That would make sense.
Yeah.
That would be something I would do. I just want to see the studio.
I thought it was maybe you wanted to see what my setup was like. Maybe it was my mobile setup.
I don't. Oh yeah, because I was always curious because yours is, you did so many recordings in your car.
Yeah.
And they always sounded like they weren't in your car. So I was trying to figure out how you did
really
it.
nice cars. I had a a 95 Toyota Previa, just top of the line.
Top of the line.
A 95 Dodge. Oh man, not the Shadow.
Intrepid?
No. Man,
Stratus.
No, it's gonna boggle my mind. Anyway, a tree fell on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, a Spirit, Dodge Spirit.
Dodge Spirit, okay.
Dodge Spirit, another classy rig.
Yep.
Did some in the Union Hall classrooms. All the same setup, taught to me by Mr. Mike Herrera from MXPX.
Yes.
Podcasting buddy, and used to be but network mates. But he showed me how to do it. I don't remember who taught him, but he sent me a picture of how it connects together. And it works great. I can do it now.
I did an interview with him that is a Tone Mob episode, basically, but it's not on the Tone Mob podcast. It's on his podcast, which is kind of hilarious. So, I interviewed Tom, right? And then Tom's like, I was like, can I talk to Mike? He's like, sure, I'll give you his number. And so he gave me his number, and I texted him, and he was kind of like, I don't know who you are. How did you get this phone number? I was like, Tom gave it to me. And he was like, oh, he's like, I always do. This was back in the day. This was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't usually do other podcasts. Just kind of a business arrangement that I've got going on. But you can come on mine. And I was like, this is even weirder because you don't know who I am. And you're going to invite me on your show, which at the time was bigger.
Yeah.
Probably still is. I'm not sure. But
it might be
bigger than mine. And so I was like, isn't this backwards? Wouldn't you do the experiment with the guy you don't know on his show and not on your own? Because that could have went horribly wrong.
Yeah.
But it's basically me interviewing him about gear through like the MXPX career, but it's on his show, which is hilarious. But
similar with me, the first time we did an episode together, he's like, why don't we just interview each other? So, all right.
Sure.
So that's what we did. And then he came back on for the 5th year anniversary. I did like a trifecta episode.
Yeah.
I couldn't decide. So there's so many like crucial people. But so I did Chino and then part 2 at his house. And then I did Mike Herrera because he was the first podcast I ever heard, which was like, oh, I could do that. And then also taught me how to do the mobile recording, which I used for years.
Right.
And then, of course, Yvette, so who's been on, a lot of times.
6 times now?
Yeah, depending on when this comes out.
It's coming out tomorrow, so.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, then, 6 times. No, 5 times.
5 times.
5 times. It's going to be New Year's Day.
Okay.
When it comes out, the part 6.
Sweet.
Which we said, like I said, I texted her the night before. I was like, hey, you want to record tomorrow? Yeah, I should be free. I was like, that was easy. Right after tour, end of the year. So anyways, but yeah, the wrap-up thing was fun last year. A lot of people do them. A lot of people do like their top records or whatever. But, I just like to like put a stamp on the end of the year.
I think
and reflect on some things.
It's fun. Like I think last year if I'm remembering correctly, we kind of framed it around like our favorite episodes or something like that. But I think it's, for me this year, it's more about just like the stuff that happened that was related to the podcast for me. Like I had some really awesome episodes. Obviously, one of my favorites of last year was you and me and Yvette, like at the Jupiter Hotel courtyard thing that we weren't supposed to be in.
Yeah.
That was obviously a favorite. That was incredible. And we were talking about the Liver King, and it turns out he is on steroids, even though...
That guy's crazy.
Did you see the fallout?
No, I just saw his like body.
Yeah, well, so he was claiming, like, he went on tons of the biggest podcasts in the world, and he's like, no, I'm all natural. Like, I'm natural. Like, I don't take steroids. And he was lying, because then a bunch of emails came out from like his trainers and suppliers and stuff, and he was on like 12 grand of steroids a month.
Oh my god.
Like HGH, like basically all like legal and like prescribed, but like he was definitely on a lot of juice.
Dude, with a family of 5, I don't even spend that much on food in a month.
I forgot my hat. Where'd
I
my
would
hat
love
go?
to be on 10, 12 grand worth of anything. Your Blockbuster hat?
Yeah, where's my
It's
hat?
behind the camera over there.
Oh, I'm gonna go get it.
It's on the other side of the studio.
No, let me go over here. What's great about this wireless rig is I can still talk and do it,
Yeah.
even if I go out of frame for a minute. This is
We're
wonderful.
full on lavalier, people.
Dude, this is incredible. I'm so
full
used
on lavalier.
I'm used to being
The
stuck.
size of a quarter. What changed this year for the podcast in your life? Like what changed? Like what big changes happened this year? For you?
So, I mean, really several things. As far as the podcast itself, that's pretty much stayed the same. I have started trying to do more YouTube things that are related, gear related, obviously, but I've realized that, yes, I want to publish. I have like tons and tons of videos to publish of the podcast to YouTube, and I want to do that, and I'm going to do that, and I have done a little bit of it. But I realized that like I got to get platform specific where I'm publishing. Like if I'm going to be a media outlet, I can't, unfortunately, I don't feel in my niche that I can just podcast, even though that's what I really want to do, is just podcast. It's not, I don't think it's going to work long term for me to only do that. So I've really made the shift into trying to learn video, and I do more video for clients now than ever, which is actually a little more fun to me than the straight up gear videos, because I get to like make these artsy weird things and like create the music for it, and they're just like bizarre, twisted like edits of things that
I just kind of get to do whatever I want there. It doesn't have to be so specific to like show this overdrive pedal. But then I also realized like I don't have to just demo stuff. So one of the most fun videos I did this year was smashing the Behringer Super Fuzz.
This is incredible.
I was like, you know what? I should take the same approach to video. Instead of feeling like it's this drag that I have to do, make it stuff that's fun. You know, make it stuff that I would want to watch. I don't want to sit there and watch straight demos all the time, especially for me. There's people that are way better at it than I am.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to take and put information that I know and put it out there, make videos that I want to make, put them out there. So, you know, I've got this gain staging one I want to do in the next few days. And just some other things like try to fill in some gaps where I feel like my skills actually apply versus just like, here's what this sounds like. Don't get me wrong, I'm still going to do demos. But just trying to adopt to a different way. Approaching video the same way I approach the podcast. I make the podcast that I would want to hear for the most part.
Yeah.
Which is why I like yours so much. They're very similar. And so taking that approach to video has been a big mindset shift for me. But then like actual events that happened, you know, the Slice of Pie came out finally.
It was so awesome.
After so much work, and they're almost gone. They may be gone by the time this drops. I'm not 100% sure. But if not, go to bigearpedals.com, folks. That was an intense project. I know a lot of people they saw the end result.
Yeah.
And it's goofy and silly, and yes, it is all of those things, but I don't think people fully understand the amount of hours and time that went into making those details just perfect. Not just from my perspective, like the concept, like I didn't come up with the concept, Grant came up with the concept, but like working through all the details, the hours and hours on the phone, and but then them actually having to go out and execute it. Just so much time, and to finally see that come out, it was really cool. But then for me, I think the biggest thing that's changed overall is I'm just getting more and more wrapped up in Stringjoy, which sounds kind of weird. But I'm spending more and more time. I'm spending as much time as I can on that without physically being in Nashville. Basically, it's my second job at this point. Is working with Scott to like try to make that company work as best as I can for everybody involved, customers, employees, and ourselves. You know, basically, it's a lot, and him and I have spent more time on the phone. I think I've spent more time. The only person I've talked to more than Scott is my wife. I think. I mean, 30 minutes to 3.5, 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
On the phone with him, trying to make sure this company stays afloat, you know, and keeps going.
Man, is there anything I mean, there's a lot keeping you, but what's keeping you from not going to Nashville? Family?
I got a lot of family here, but I go to Nashville fairly frequently. Yeah. And it would be a pretty good career move for me to go to Nashville, obviously, with all the guitar stuff. Yeah. But I'm an Oregon boy. Yeah. Like, born and raised. And every time I go to Nashville, I'm like, this is great. I really like it here, but it's not home. Yeah. Oregon is home for me. Like, the Willamette Valley specifically. Even going to Bend, I'm like, I love Bend. But I couldn't live here. Yeah, couldn't live there. It's. I mean, I could live anywhere. I'm a cockroach, but.
But you don't want to.
I don't want to. I love it here. Yeah. I really love the Willamette Valley, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, and I don't have to because I'm currently here, and I don't plan on going anywhere. But if I was to go somewhere, it 100% would be Nashville. Yeah, no doubt. It's my home away from home. I love Nashville.
I guess you could have you're 3 or 4 hours on the phone. But then you get to hang up the phone and you're here instead of hanging up the phone or stopping the conversation and going to your house in Nashville.
Right, which wouldn't suck. Sure. I mean, I do love it. Yeah. But it's not Oregon. So, I don't see that ever happening. I could see me going there more. I'm currently going there about once a year. I could see myself going like 3-4 times a year. Yeah. Potentially.
Quarterly visits. That would make sense.
Yeah. And it seems like I don't have to plan. It's kind of funny. I don't really, you'd think I'd be like, oh, I'm going to plan a quarterly visit, right? It's been more like things happen and I have to go.
Yeah.
So when we got into Sweetwater, it was all hands on deck.
Yeah.
So that was a
You
huge.
were gone.
I talked to Scott on Friday and I was like, do you think you want me to come and help? Like I can't like make strings efficiently, but I can box things, I can tape things, I can count things, like no problem. And he's like, yeah, I think we got it. I think it'll be okay. It's gonna be rough, but I think we got it. And Monday, he texts me, how soon can you be here and how long can you stay? Because not only did the Sweetwater order come through, that would have been fine in and of itself. And if people who've worked with retailers, the initial order is always your biggest, right? It's because they got to stock up.
Yeah.
And then everything else from there on is like just topping off what they have. It's more manageable. But the initial order is always really large because they don't have anything. And we didn't know that was going to happen. We'd been talking to them and we thought, okay, we're going to have several phone calls and hash things out and whatever. But what happened was we launched the Orbiters, our coated electrics. And we had already told all our existing retailers about it the week before launch. We're like, hey, we're coming out with these. If you want to be part of the launch, let us know. We'll get your order out, blah, 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 blah. That caused all of our current retailers to go, whoa, yeah, of course we do. So they put in a bunch of orders.
Yeah.
And then Sweetwater, the next day, after we sent that email to all our existing retailers, the next day Sweetwater got on the phone with us and was like, yeah, we want to bring you on. Let's do this. And by the way, we want you being Scott and Chris, our retail guy, global sales guy, actually. That sounds, he's very important.
Yes.
They had to get there before October 31st because October 31st was the last day that they do their in-house training for all the sales engineers. Because going into Q4, it's a madhouse. They don't have time to train.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So we had to do it all in 2 weeks. So we had to do the Orbiters launch, and because we already told our current retailers, then we had to do the big Sweetwater order and get it all done in 2 weeks, which was an enormous thing to try to do at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
So I flew down there and we actually got it all cranked out 5 days early, which they weren't thinking we were going to be able to do. So that was really impressive to see the team all come together and make it happen. But yeah, Stringjoy is just growing. It's always been important to me, and I didn't think it could get more important, but it's getting more and more important because as the company's growing and doing really well, thanks to largely Scott and he's kind of a brilliant dude. They're the whole team really, but like he's the heart of the company, obviously.
Yeah.
The responsibility that comes with it is not something I necessarily expected to weigh on my brain as much as it does. It's like, ooh, there's a lot of people down there that got to eat, and we got to make sure that this thing keeps chucking along, not just for us, but because these people, they work hard for us and they deserve to be taken care of the best we possibly can. So that's been a mental thing I wasn't anticipating. Yeah, it's a good thing, but it's also kind of weird. Yeah. As a former just like mechanic guy. But yeah, that's what comes top of mind when you ask that question. Other than that, yeah, it's just been trying to keep the podcast going, keep all the media stuff trucking along, and trying to make sure that those responsibilities are met as well. You know, I really appreciate everybody that tunes in and listens, and it's still astounding to me because as much as I've been talking about kind of everything podcast related, none of this, like I wouldn't be involved in Stringjoy. None of this would happen without the podcast. The podcast is I wouldn't even have the client work that I have without the podcast. It's all related to the show because that's how people find me. Yeah, dude. Well, you got to think too. You're a dad and a husband, supporting your family from this stuff. Also have a family at Stringjoy. Right. You're trying to you're doing double duty. Yeah, and what you make a fantastic polygamist. You can keep your head on under stress and support multiple families. That's what the podcast has led to. It's led to me being a polygamist. FLDS, polygamist, straight ahead, buddy. I was going to say, you're familiar with that, right? Boom. Yeah, head on down. I'm familiar with what I was told about it beforehand, before it became, well, it was always a crazy thing, but before it became like
documentary after documentary,
Right.
and book after book. So I was like, yeah, those people split off, and they're not right.
Right.
That's what it was told to me. I was like, oh, we don't talk about them.
Which,
all right.
Which, fair enough. Yeah. I see why.
But the parallels are fascinating to what you're doing.
Never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I did refer to Scott, or we did collectively before the cameras were rolling, as work wife. So yeah. Maybe I'm the work wife. I'm not really sure how that works in that particular relationship. But yeah, we talk a lot.
I can barely handle one. I wouldn't want to bring in a second. But that was just a thought that came right across my mind, right across the bow.
The thoughts that come to your mind are fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, that's what makes your podcast fun.
I did have one thought that was going to be profound. I was certain of it as I was talking to Yvette the other day. And live time, I just start talking. And I always tie things into analogies, as you probably noticed,
Yes.
like a lot. Just how my brain works. So I'm in the moment, I'm going into this thing, and I bring up the subject of being on tour and driving past horrible car accidents, and like seeing like dead kids and stuff, which is awful, which has happened multiple times. And I had a huge, like, overarching thought that I was going to make clear with this. So I go down that road, and then I just start like kind of looking and like kind of saying words. My mind went completely blank, and I never recovered from it. Like, I never remember. To this day, it's been 5 days. I still don't remember where my point was, and it's driving me nuts. But it was live time. I'm leaving it in there. Like, I'm just like, Yvette, I totally lost my. I don't know what I'm talking about.
It was gonna be cool.
Yeah, car accidents. Like, what was I talking about?
Right.
No idea.
You know when you're gonna remember? When you're like welding a pipe.
Yeah.
You'll be like, oh yeah.
That's it. Or as I'm recording the intro to the episode, and oh yeah, that's what I was getting at. I thought about listening back to it and trying to find where my mind was going. I can't. I've been noticing that a lot more lately. I will forget what I was gonna say. I will forget what I was gonna look. So say I'm on Instagram or something, I'm scrolling through doing nothing. I'm like, oh, I should check out this song, or I should check out this. Like, this thought comes to my head. I'll then immediately forget it. And then I have to scroll up through my Instagram to go back to what I was looking at to recall. It's super weird.
Yeah.
It's getting worse.
I feel like that's less of a symptom of like age, because neither of us are that old. But it happens to me more now too. And I think it literally is everyone's brain is full.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way you can absorb all this stuff that's being thrown at you via the podcast. I had a listener the other day messaged me, and I won't call him out because they didn't get permission to. But he was like, I just started listening to Gaslight Anthem. It's incredible. How did I miss Gaslight Anthem? And I was like, I know he listens to every episode. I was like, Brian's only been on like 3 times. Like, yeah.
How did I never hear about this?
And he's like, I know, but as soon as the podcast is off, I'm on to something else, and my brain is like, oh yeah, I should check that out, and I'm like, you know what? I can't fault you for that, because I do the same thing all the time. Every intention on following up with whatever it is, like and it's just like, boom, on to the next thing. Which is why I actually really like the process of doing podcasts, because this is the only time in like modern human like interaction where we can tell everyone that we know, leave me alone. I'm talking to this person for the next hour, and I'm only talking to this person.
Yeah.
That's all I'm doing. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not checking my phone. I'm not even thinking about any of that stuff. You know, like, my wife can get through in an emergency. She can come pound on the door if it's really serious, which has happened before. But in general, no, I'm going to be alone with this person conversing for an hour, and there isn't really any other space unless you do this. Where else can you do that? Like, you have to be very intentional about it. And it's, if you're kind of like, bro, can you leave your phone at home? We're gonna have a barbecue. Just everyone put their phone in a bowl. Like, that's a little weird. Like, you don't want to force anybody to do that. But when in this context, it's like, oh yeah, I gotta make sure I'm paying attention to what's going on here. And I like that. It's also why I like working out, because if you don't pay attention to what you're doing when you start trying to lift heavy, you get hurt.
You're having a conversation with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So you gotta. Those are 2 ways I can actually shut off the chatter in my brain: is podcasting and exercising.
Dude, that brings up an interesting point. was thinking of this the other day, and let's see if I forget it. The VIP experience, right? Like, so you pay for a VIP experience with a band.
Sure.
A lot of money, and you get like the laminate, and you get which isn't real, and you get like, it's so weird to me. Like people, and I had to remember back to when I was a kid, like going to shows and how cool I thought it was that, oh my God, there's so and so, like really fascinated by it before all the magic was killed by touring. Like, oh my God, I totally got a laminate, man. Like, it doesn't get me anywhere, but yeah, it's cool. Like, and I just don't understand that side of things anymore, because it's just like I'm just jaded, and I'll admit that. Like you've seen it. I've seen it. Like but it's cool for them. So like I went to this is a long tail on this kite, but I went to the Trinity of Terror tour the other day.
Okay.
At the Moda Center it was Ice Nine Kills, Motionless in White, Black Veil Brides, and Atreyu. Mm-hmm. And a couple of the Atreyu guys are good buddies of mine. Yeah. Porter and Travis. And so they got me past, and then Spencer from Ice Nine's a friend of mine, but and then Mike Mowry manages them. Mm-hmm. I was like, hey, I want to go see Ice Nine. I'll check it out. So they give me passes and stuff, and everything's good to go. And I'm standing in line with these two people. And then there's lines wrapping around the Moda Center, but I'm in this 2-person line because of a VIP pass or whatever. But they're getting like the VIP experience. So they get let in and they meet whoever and do this whole thing, and they're so excited. They're like, oh, that's cool, you know? And then I go in and I'm standing there waiting, because since COVID, a lot of the stuff, if they'll even let you backstage, you have to be escorted usually. So I had to wait for Porter or Travis to come get me to bring me back. So I'm in early because of the VIP pass. And I'm watching all these people come in, and they're running in, and they all got the same makeup on and the same shirts, but they're being originals, all right? And this is me being a cynical bastard, but they're all wearing the same shirts, same makeup. 2 guys had like clawed eye makeup on. Okay. Came in separately. They're not together. Just regular clothes with like, oh, I got slashed by a bear on the way in. Right. Like, you know? And
that's like an Ice Nine thing, right?
But they all, like they all like are being themselves, their true version of themselves. And I had to sit back a second and think about how jaded I was. But then a dude comes up to me, excuse me, boss, do you know where the nearest bathroom is? And I'm like, do I look like I work? I didn't say this, but in my mind, I'm like, wow, I must be old here. I'm the guy who knows where the bathroom is, the guy who works there, right? And I've got like the pass on my shirt. And it was crazy. But then I'm thinking back, dude, I used to get ready for shows when I was that age. Mm-hmm. Like I used to, like, you know, I wouldn't throw makeup on or anything, but I'd throw like this cool black shirt, and I thought I was totally original, going to be with all the guys that look like me, watching this band that we like. Even when like Thursday was playing, we'd all get all of the hair brushed across, like, and I was in that boat. And I had like, why am I such a jerk that in my mind, I can't help but think like, oh, there's another one. There's another one. Oh, this is awesome. So I had to shut that part of me off. Long tail on this, the VIP experience. What you pay to get a handshake from the band and a picture, right? Sure. Hundreds of dollars, probably. Yeah. It's crazy. It's astronomical.
Usually a couple $100, I think.
Couple $100. Yeah. We get to, with what we do, we get to sit down with one of these people from these bands that people pay hundreds of dollars to get a handshake from for an hour, hour and a half, just the 2 of us. Mm-hmm. Ask whatever we want, talk about whatever we want to talk about, tell whatever story we want to tell for free.
Yeah. Not only that, like sometimes we get paid.
But that's
not from the people, but like to do what we do. Yeah.
So but how many hours do we put into this show before we get that? Oh. And you take that and think about how much we are paying to have that experience just by our own time to get there, get something that far.
That's a good point. It would be cheaper to spend a couple $100 on a VIP
We're exactly
experience.
The same.
Yep.
We're exactly the same as those fans coming in, but we are also the conduit between that guy or gal and that guy or gal. Mm-hmm.
100%.
It's such a weird, incestuous, like, amoeba of life. Like, I start out going to shows. I love this band. This band's my favorite band. I'm gonna wear this. I'm gonna do that. I'm myself. I can be myself here. Then start said band, go out and be in band, lose all love for that side of everything, and just get in the business mode. Then get out of that and get into this. How many hours? Like I was thinking about this the other day. When my dad passed away, I was supposed to interview Mike Ness that weekend, and I canceled it because I was like, I'm going to be here with my dad. He's dying.
Yeah.
The opportunity has never presented itself again. He would have loved for me to go do that. He would have like woken up out of that coma and said, get your ass down there.
Right.
I'll be here for a while. Like just, he would have slapped me in the face if I was able to tell him, hey, I canceled this. But from when I was 13 years old, 14 years old, and first saw Social Distortion, to what would have been me sitting on the couch in the Moda Center with Mike Ness, face to face, just us, for an hour and a half.
Dude.
How many hours did I spend in between there to get to that point of hard work and sacrifice for that road to lead there? $1 million?
We have no idea.
Did I just pay $1 million of my lifetime to sit down with Mike Ness? Probably.
No, that's a good point.
Weird perspective, but it's the truth.
It is true, and I didn't go through that whole. Hold on, before I'm always paranoid when my screensaver comes on. I just want to make sure we're still recording. Sorry, just peek behind the curtain, everybody. Shoes. I can't do it from that angle. This is exciting.
Did you say shoes?
Shoe. I meant to say shoot, and I said shoes. I don't know why.
Nerds. What's my password?
All right, we're good.
All right.
I can't see it. I get paranoid.
Yeah.
We're good. Anyway, no, when you put it in that, so what I was going to say is, you went through the whole like process to be able to get jaded.
Yeah.
And I didn't. So I didn't tour. I never started seeing what that side of life looked like until I started doing this.
Yeah.
So for me, I kind of went from fanboy, like, dress up for the show mode, to the first time it really happened was with Brian Fallon.
Yeah.
To sitting down with Brian Fallon on a tour bus. So I went from fan to sitting down with Brian Fallon on a tour bus without ever going and seeing the rest of it. Where I was like, I felt like Chris Farley, like in that SNL skit where he's like, remember that time? Remember that time? You wrote that.
59 Sound?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was awesome. I kind of felt like that, and so like going and having all these experiences, especially because I was starting to be able to do that right before COVID. It's like we met in person at the Thrice show, right?
Yes. When you were interviewing your favorite band.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that was like full bullet. I mean, after that, like when they went to play, I went in the mosh pit. Like.
And I went home.
Yeah. I was like,
the difference is astounding. I was in a car on my way home after 3 songs because like that's all I needed.
Yeah. I was in there the whole time. I went down, and then got to see this from my perspective. So I was in there singing, screaming, moshing my head off, just going, got done, drenched with sweat, completely disgusting, walked down the stairs at the Roseland, down into the green room, and I go into the bathroom, use the restroom, and come out, and Dustin's there like washing his hands. And I'm like, this is so weird for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't say anything to him. I was like, hey. And he's like, yeah, hey. Yeah. And we just, I'm like, this is so weird for me as a huge fan to have this access and to see this stuff. And, I mean, things like, I don't know if you listened to this episode or not, but I'm a massive Lucero fan as well. And now when Brian V comes here, I pick him up. We go around. He came back here, and we just hung out and made weird spacey sounds with pedals for a while. My dad comes in. My dad and mom come in because they knew we were out here.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're not interrupting anything, are we? Like, no. And my dad basically interviews him for like an hour and a half. And finally, I was like, this is too good. And I just turned my phone voice memo on. And it sounds terrible, but I was like, I got to get something.
Yeah.
And it's like my dad sitting here having a conversation, a musical conversation with a guy that's played in a band I've been obsessed with forever. And he's sitting right by that drum set over there. Like,
it's so incredible, dude. My dad would have done the same thing, but he would have turned it around and be like, so you ever heard of Portugal the Man? You ever heard of Anatomy of a Ghost? My boy's in this band. Like, he always would turn it around into that. He was good at talking to people too, but he would immediately turn it around into something like promoting what
you.
his son's doing or whatever,
Right.
you know, which was so cringy to me when he was around, but when he's not, I cherish it to no end.
Mm-hmm.
But dude, that's hilarious. Like we were talking about going down, like going to the bathroom, Dustin's watching it, you're both sweaty as hell. Like,
Oh, yeah.
but think about like, I first met them at a show at the Meow Meow, the second location.
Okay.
They were playing with the Anti-Flag and Starting Line and like some crazy.
Oh, I remember that
weird,
lineup. I didn't go to that, but I remember that
It was
lineup.
so good, and I was like, "Who is this band?" And I talked to them for a little bit. Then every time they came through, I would go to the show, hang out, talk, hang out by the van, chatting them up, you know, blah blah blah. Then we get on Warped Tour together. Like, oh,
Whoa, yeah.
Tepe, what's up, dude? He's in the lunch line. He's like, "Hey, man, you guys are playing this?" Yeah, we're playing this, and they're on main stage, of course, doing their thing. And we would hang out in the bus for air conditioning, and just came closer that way. Every time they come through, we'd hang out. And we just grew into a friendship. To which, talking about the journey, you and me had talked to each other like online and stuff. Didn't know anything about each other really. I show up to the Roseland. Eddie comes out. We go back and it's like, "Where's Tap?" He's like, "Oh, he's doing a podcast." And I was like, "Oh, not mine. Weird. Okay." Because usually when they come through town. And I was
Right.
like, "Man, I'm tired of recording our conversations. Let's just hang out."
Let's hang out, yeah.
And so I go down there and I just go down there and start making a sandwich. Like they spent all this time building this band. After, you know, I'm going over the place, but I went my direction, they went their direction. We all spent time, which got us back to each other to where I'm making a sandwich for free and a show for free with your favorite band and some of my favorite people in the world, to where you and I met in that same room where Tepe and I were just doing an episode when I almost quit the podcast.
Oh, dude.
I almost quit the podcast. So much stuff went down behind the scenes. Yeah. Anyway, not with me, but with my friend, and it about killed my whole motivation for doing the podcast.
Sure.
And I was like, I gotta, if I'm gonna do this, I have to do this now. Like I have to do another. So I called Tepe and I was like, "Dude, let's do the podcast when you're here next week." He's like, "Okay." And that was my comeback. Was that in that couch where you were doing it earlier?
Okay, wow.
Same couch where I was with Jeff from Thursday when I realized I don't use my notes. It changed the whole form of the podcast to what it is now. That same couch in that green room, the bigger green room in the Roseland,
Yeah.
in the back corner.
Wow.
And then, but that's the thing. Like they go their direction, I go mine, and then now we're making a sandwich. You and I are hanging out, and then you and I and Ed had a conversation for like, I don't know, 2 hours afterwards, just shooting the crap, and then like you're out moshing and I'm driving home.
Well,
It's just so weird.
and that was a moment for me too. So I was sitting there. So there was a band playing that night that you've interviewed, and I really want to. The Holy Fun.
Yeah.
Huge
So
fan.
good.
I'm a huge fan of that band. They're
So good. Shout out
so
Holy
good.
Fun.
Yes, so good. Go listen to Holy
Dimensional
Fun.
Bleed.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic record.
Yes. Go check it out.
Came out this year.
And I knew they were playing it, and I was like, oh, they're playing right now, and I really want to watch them because I've never seen them before. But in my head, I'm doing the math of like, there's a chance that I will never be sitting this close to Ed again. And we're just hanging out, having a good time. Nothing crazy's happened. We're just talking. Yeah. There's a chance that I'll never get to do this again because who knows anything could happen, right? I was like, this is your favorite band for 20 plus years. Just sit here and have the conversation with the bassist.
Yeah.
Like you can
Just
probably catch
enjoy
Holy
yourself.
Fun at some other point, most likely. And just you're already getting along famously. Just talk to him. Not like 5 minutes later, you know, okay, this is like where the gear nerd in me comes out. Ed busts out his grabber.
The one he made.
Not the one he made, the one he's played for a long time.
Oh, okay.
When he played on
I must have been playing the one he made.
Yeah, he'd brought a couple of them.
His front of house wouldn't let him play it. It sounded so bad.
Yeah. But his original one.
Yeah.
And so he busts that thing out and I don't even know why. I don't remember why. Maybe I think it was to compare it to the one that he made. I think that's what
Possibly.
it was.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and Jess, my good friend Jess is with me. He's also a massive fan, just as big of a fan as I am. So he's loving this too. He busts out the grabber and I'm like, And he's like, yeah, here, check it out. And so there's a picture of me on the internet, like holding the grabber. And for most people that is like, oh, it's an old Gibson grabber, who cares? I'm like, no, this is Ed's Gibson grabber. I listened to this bass forever and I'm holding it and I'm noodling on it a little bit. And I was like, yeah, I made the right choice staying down here. This is so cool for me. Yeah. And I know for him, it's like just every day, right? And he's been, I mean, again, like I'm kind of gushing here because I still can't believe, this is the part where I haven't got fully jaded yet. Because like Ed texted me when they were recording the latest record. He's like, check out the space. I'm like, oh, are you guys recording? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I just found out they were recording before most fans have any idea that they're recording. Yeah. Like this is wild to me. And it's just from doing this. This right here. It's so insane to me. I love it. I love it.
If there's one band
awesome.
that is not just Tuesday, it's those guys.
Yeah.
Like they absorb it all, they enjoy it all, and when you're talking with them, they're talking with you. Like it's not another day. Like it's just as awesome to them as well. I mean, they're just wonderful, beautiful people. And
it's also really encouraging that like, because everyone's like, don't meet your heroes. And I'm like, but mine are really cool, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Like everybody I've got to meet so far that I've really looked up to as a musician has been incredible. I've had nothing but positive experiences meeting my musical heroes so far. I'm sure
the bigger the band, the nicer the person. It's crazy sometimes.
But I wanted to ask you, since I want to flip it to you. 2022, what have been some kind of big moments? What changed for you this year?
Yeah, well, we're going through a change right now because we're leaving Equal Vision January 1st.
Excuse me. So why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because I think as we talked about before, we've talked about this a lot, but before we started recording today, I said to a fan of the podcast, that probably sounds like a bad thing, but I know that it's not. So maybe you can elaborate on what that means.
Yeah, it's like, it's a strange feeling. It's strange for a few reasons. So the first reason is Dan at Equal Vision took a huge chance on me. And his only goal was to help the show. Like, how, let me help you out. Like, how can I help you out? Right. And granted, it was during COVID, so no bands were touring. It was like this dead zone of time. And, he wanted to learn about the podcast space. I needed help. And like a partner, because I've been doing it mostly on my own for so long. Maury and I were doing it with Jabberjaw. He was helping me out. I'm bouncing ideas off him every day. When that fell apart, that's when everything just went to the toilet. And I looked back, and it was I think it was June to November or something like that. It was a long time I didn't put out an episode. This is also how I realized the radio station I was on, the internet radio station I was on, didn't have any idea what I was doing, because every week it kept playing the same episode for like 5 months.
Oh, what?
And then they never asked about it. Like,
really?
Hey, Chris 2 from Anti-Flags again? Oh, he's been on there for 5 months now, every week, same time.
Wow.
So that kind of clued me in, like, all this is just fake. Like, there's nothing here. Anyway, so when Dan and I were talking about this, that's right when Jabberjaw was dissolving. And I was like, man, I'm just going to go on my own. And, Maury's like, just talk to Sound Talent. Just take a call with them. It's Dave Shapiro, who's a good friend of mine for a long time. And he's like, just hear what Dave has to say. And I'm like, well, I'm talking to Dan at Equal Vision. We're talking about maybe doing something, with the podcast, like a band, which as far as I know, had not been done before. Maybe it had.
I don't think so. I'd never heard of it.
He's like, why don't we just sign it like a band and work it like a band? We have the resources, and they're not doing anything right now. Same reason there was a podcast network. Because there was no booking going on. So it's like this perfect storm. I was like, man, I got to say yes to this. Like, I got to try this. And because I trust Dan with my life. Like, we talk every day. And it was great. It was fantastic. The show grew. We got, I came up with like a rebrand concept that I was able to execute because I'm not an artist. But I was able to give Alan Ashcraft the pieces of what I wanted to see, and he turned it into something that has recreated the show.
And I wear that merch all the time.
You do. Thank you very much. And but it was all like, this is what I want to see, and he would come back with something, and it would either be amazing or terrible. Regardless, it was working towards something. And once the rebrand was done, we had everything firing, like everything was going great. And it was absolutely fine. But then when everything started rolling in, like money starts, we won't say rolling in, but sponsors come on board and things like that, where I'm doing 99% of the work, which was to be expected. Like I didn't think anyone else was going to do the work.
Right.
I needed help growing the show, art department, business advice, things like that. And that's what Equal
Legal
Vision
stuff.
gave
Like,
me.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
They gave me way more than I gave them, for sure. And it just came down to a conversation between Dan and I where he's like, like the show's doing great, but, there's, like bands make a certain amount of money. A podcast makes a certain amount of money. Very different amounts of money.
Yes.
It's like, I just don't want, like with the amount of work you're doing, I don't want to keep taking a percentage of what you're working for because of a deal. He's like, so I would be totally fine if you want to like not go our separate, that sounds awful. It wasn't getting dropped. It was like, I want you to, like, we can't do anything else for you.
Basically, if I'm understanding it correctly, it's like, pay us back what we put in.
And that's already done.
Right. And then you get the full check, basically.
Yeah. And
because you're doing so much more work than we're providing resources, but as far as hours go, you're doing all this work, you deserve more of the paycheck, essentially.
Yes, and because he's my friend. Like, he's like, he's a good person. He sees something like that and says, you know what? This money isn't like changing our life here at EVR, but having this money every month will change his.
Right.
And that's exactly the way he put it. I almost teared up. Like, I was like, you're serious? Like, you'd be cool with that? He's like, absolutely. You need this so much more than we do. Like, we have bands and all this stuff. And I don't think they could have taken the show any further.
Right. You can.
I can, but there's nothing more for them to do. Like, he provided the help I needed. And the fact that he's willing to let me out of the deal early to help me was phenomenal. Like, I told him, like, he's like, I don't want that to sound like negative. Like, it's not. Like, I didn't even know it was an option.
Right.
So I wasn't even thinking about that. And so it was really a special thing. He came to me. Well, we came to each other in the beginning. How can I help? I love the show. How can I help? And we worked it out. He did exactly what he was supposed to do and beyond. The show did exactly what it was supposed to do and well beyond expectations. And then in the end, set it free.
Right.
So that is why when I say we're leaving Equal Vision, maybe the wrong word. We're separating from Equal Vision, but in the best way possible.
Right.
On the best terms. There was never a negative moment. That was so crazy. When you're dealing with bands, it can be a nightmare. But the podcast was always a fun kind of hobby for Dan and for me, because we get on the phone every week and talk and just have a blast. It wasn't all stress and you did this to me and you owe me this and blah, blah. That's when he got to shut that part of the label off and just talk to one of his buddies every week. And same for me. I shut off everything else and, Dan and I are talking. That's it. Like, that's the good part of my week. Well, and that was what's so fun about it.
It was more of a team effort thing. It was like, we're both trying to do the same thing. And I think with bands, sometimes it becomes, this is just my perspective, it becomes a little bit of a band versus the label situation. Or it can, not always, but it can morph into that, where the label doesn't feel like the band is putting in the work they should, and the band feels like the label's not putting in the resources that they should, or whatever it is. They both feel like it's like kind of it starts out as like, yeah, we're gonna do this together, and then it slowly but surely morphs over time to where both parties are trying to get more out of each other than they probably should. Whereas with the podcast, it's more like, if I'm reading it correctly, two friends both trying to build the same, it's like two bandmates. Together trying to grow one thing, even though they are separate entities. But it's in both of their interests to push forward.
And he got to learn about the podcast space, which is big for a label to know now when they're positioning bands and stuff for things. the podcast game is real, and he learned it from the inside out with like a genuine podcast, like a real deal.
One that people listen to.
Yeah, I've been on several record labels, and I wanted to be on EVR so bad my entire adult life. So now I have been signed to EVR as an artist on my own, not with a band, but from work that I put in to make it something that they would want. That was the coolest feeling in the world, seeing my face on that roster. They'll now say on the alumni roster, but seeing my face on that. Well, I used to go to that website every day and just check the news, tour dates, whatever, as a kid. When we didn't sign with them with Anatomy of a Ghost, I was furious, but I was blinded by the money that Fearless was offering.
Right.
When they offered us a very fair deal that would have gotten us what we needed without all the extras, but it's what they knew they could provide. We said no because Fearless offered us a crap load of money. It was the worst decision we ever made, and I told him that all the time, and he knew that for 20 years until we reconnected and made this deal. I've wanted to be on Ecovision, and I've done it. It's awesome. It was a huge milestone for me, and it was never, like the other labels, I won't say were predatory, but they weren't giving us the full picture, and we didn't understand.
Right.
That when they hand you this money, you immediately owe that money.
Yeah, it's like a loan
And you're
with very
paying
bad
it back
terms.
at a percentage.
Yes.
So if you borrow 10 grand and it's a 50-50 deal or whatever, you have to make 20 grand to pay that back.
Yeah.
And you don't get any of that. Like, it's crazy. And so with Ecovision, it was never predatory. If I needed something, like a piece of gear, Dan, what do you think about this? Like, he's like, well, this is about how long it's going to take to pay that back. Think about it. I'll absolutely help you, but I want you to know the back end.
Right.
It was never like, oh yeah, hey, Steve, we can make some extra money off too. Never once. He always laid it out clear and made sure I understood. And that taught me a ton about the music business. Also could bounce ideas off him. What do you think of this? He taught me patience. I was a firecracker when I first got on there. Like, we're doing this. I got 15 episodes in the can. He's just like, cool, but this guy won't email me back and blah, blah, blah. He's just like, calm down.
Chill. Yeah.
What he taught me in this last 2 years is far more valuable than anything monetarily has ever happened in my life. And I thank him profusely for that. And I always have and always will value his friendship that way. And that's why when he said that, like, how about, I'd be cool to entertain the idea of, dissolving early, because the contract goes till September of 23.
Right.
I was just, I literally almost teared up because I was like, dude, that's huge. He's like, we've both done great. Like, proof of concept. No one's left out anything. Every cent's been paid back. People have made money. It was a complete success.
Right.
So I don't know the right way to say it. Leaving EVR, moving on from EVR, moving forward from EVR, I guess. But it was a great home for 2 years. And that support was huge. Through dark times, I could call Dan in the worst possible situation, midnight his time, and we'd get into it. And he talked me through it or whatever, it was awesome. But that's still there. So if I have something, I'll call him up, Well,
and
that's what friends do,
Well, and who knows what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
There could be things come up, and it's just, it seems like the best decision for the current situation for everybody. Because also, the other side of it is, not only is it good for you to be able to get all your returns back, but it's also, it sounds kind of weird to say, but they're a bigger organization, right? And they need to focus their efforts on what's currently keeping the lights on. And that is now, again, touring in bands. And
it's not the podcast.
Right.
It's not hurting, but it's not paying the bills for them.
Right. Right. So it's one of those things where you got to focus your efforts where you have to focus your efforts. And it's not, it's not tremendously different from what we do on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah.
Like, we can spend a whole bunch of time hassling down random people for interviews, which we do. Or, you can email Monica and probably get somebody pretty dope pretty quickly.
Yeah.
One of those deals. So you got to be able to focus your attention wherever it needs focused. You can put time into things that maybe aren't necessarily gonna provide immediately, which I mean, you and I know a lot about. That's what podcasting is most of the time.
It's all an investment.
But at some point, you do have to focus your efforts, on certain things. Well, a decent example actually is the podcast is core to what I do, but it wasn't the thing that initially got me to be able to quit my job. That was client work. And it certainly wasn't String Joy. That was that was a pipe dream at that point. Like we wanted it to, but every single cent that came in was going immediately back in to the company. So Scott, actually, I don't know if he's gonna get me in trouble for saying this, but like I know he's told a few people this. Some people asked him when he started the company, how did you go from tending bar to having this company and then doing it full time? And he was like, you don't want to know the honest answer? Credit card debt. Like he literally had to decide, do I think that this is going to be worth it? Do I think I can make this work? And he put himself into a little bit of debt initially. It's gone now, but like he had to take a big risk initially in order to put the time in that he needed to put in. And for me, I've said this on the podcast before, it was similar because I wanted the podcast to go. And I really wanted it to work for me. But initially I had to have like 5 or 6 different clients that enabled me the flexibility to be able to work on the podcast and String Joy and everything else. And Scott and I worked on a lot of that together as well. But we had to have that in order to give us the flexibility to work on the things we really wanted to. So all that to say is we had to focus on some things that we didn't really want to focus on in the short term in order to be able to have the energy and time to work on our long-term projects. It was a weird time because I was basically working 3 full-time jobs at the same time in order to make it work. And finally it got to a point where I could only work 2 full-time jobs at the same time. And I was able to quit that job. And the one piece of advice I have given and would give to people about that is, even though I did that for 3 years, basically 3 full-time jobs at the same time, I quit a little early. I should have put in maybe 6 more months at that place. It would have made things a little bit smoother. A lot of entrepreneur and creative type people think that they have to just cut bait and go. Now I'm a full-time musician or I'm a full-time whatever. It's like, man, you don't have to do that. You don't have to. In fact, it's very intelligent to have a good paying gig. You're used to this, and building the thing you're really passionate about slowly over time. Because by the time you're ready to make that leap, you'll have a track history of what happens during what time of year, because things are cyclical, and you'll have a record of mistakes that you're like, I don't want to do that again. Good thing I had something to cover my bills when I lost all that money from that mistake I made. Like, there's a ton of things that are beneficial for creatives and entrepreneurs to keep your day job for as long as you possibly can until it's time to quit. I simply was burnt out. I was like, I either have to do this or I have to quit something. I can't. I'm working. I don't even know how many hours a week on this. I gotta do something. But it would have been more intelligent if I could have mentally held on longer. And I think a lot of people, a lot of musicians need to know that most musicians have a day job, even ones that are very successful. I mean, even Ed, when we were talking to him, he's like, yeah, when I go home, I think I'm going to work in this cabinet shop for a while. I don't think people realize that. They just see people on stage and they're like, that's what they do. And in some cases that is true, but a lot of people have other gigs, even people you wouldn't expect.
If your job was an hour a night,
what are you doing the rest of the time?
You got to fill the rest of the time, That's one of them.
It's jobs. Jobs. Sometimes it just makes sense, right? Sure, my band's successful, but like, I don't want to sit around the couch all day eating Cheetos. I can do other things. I can woodwork, I can build, I can do whatever. So I think a lot of people, and shows like this and yours, they are helping reveal some of that. I think we all have this fantasy of when we were kids reading alternative press and just thinking that that's all these people do all day is just sit around and make music. And that's not true for most people.
That's not at all. I spend all day at work building stuff for other people, and then after work build something for me. You know, I could care less about the other side of it. There's so much money involved and insurance that, I mean, I'm not going to screw it up, but I'm also not going to, you know, kill myself for it.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of, I mean, you have to be safe when you're doing that kind of stuff, but it's not a passion at all.
It's construction. Like
Construction, yeah. I'm building this rich dude's building for this rich dude to buy or this rich dude to move into. It's nothing against the rich people, but like, they don't, like, in my mind, I don't think it's small potatoes.
It's not passion.
When someone gets screwed up, like, oh man, that cost $1,000. Shoot. Instead of when I screw something up in my own thing, like, that's $1,000. Oh God. You know? Like, it's different.
Yes.
I don't want to speak from that. I've never been rich, so I couldn't tell you, but it would seem like, oh yeah, you know, they write off more than that with a lot of these things. Like, anyway, but yeah, that was the moving on from EBR will be a big change, and it happened this year. It's just not official until the 1st of January. But and then where to go from there? Who knows? It's a wide open yonder.
The sky's the limit.
Yeah, but you start to get burned out on things. You start to get like, yeah, it's just, if you let it climb into your head, it'll keep eating at you until you do something about it.
Yes.
So that's something I was struggling with this year too, was just not getting burned out and taking things in stride and taking things, you know, as they come. I had that conversation with Ross Robinson. That was one of the best episodes of the year for me.
Absolutely.
Just hearing his take on things and absorbing his energies and his perspective was really fascinating. Like I really took a lot from that conversation. And that was kind of a turning point for the show as well. Like, I'd wanted to have him on for a long time, and we got introduced like through multiple people. But eventually it was Cody Vadalato texting him saying, hey, you need to do this show. And he's like, I'm in on a group text. He's like, let's do it. I was like, excellent. And then who knew where it was going to go? Right. And now, yeah, like, when I had Justin Pearson on just for the Christmas morning episode, right when we finished, we had been talking about Ross on the episode for quite a while and joking about stuff or whatever. And then I hang up from him. He's like, dude, Ross just texted me. How weird is that?
That
like,
is
literally
weird.
hung up and then looked at his phone and it was Ross. So then I texted Ross and I was like, hey, just got off the phone, JP or whatever. And he's like, what? Whoa! It turned into this whole little thing. I was like, I'm gonna text him and get super weird. Yeah. Because of course mine wasn't provoked by the universe. It was not poking the bear, but like, oh, I'm totally gonna mess with him and text him. Hey,
sure.
By the way, just got off the phone, JP. Well, I was just talking to JP. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But that was a good one. Him and Josh Eppard's episode and Travis from Coheed. Both those back to back were just emotionally exhausting, but emotionally filling as well. Like it was like that. Oh, like you have a scratch that feels really good to scratch, but it also hurts.
Like a scab, kind of.
Like it's like, oh yeah, it feels good, and the next day you're like, oh, why did I do that?
Too hard. Yeah.
That's exactly what it was like. Like it needed to happen, and it felt real good, and then it felt real bad afterwards because of
like draining.
Draining, yeah. And I've been looking into this, and this sounds so weird. Vicarious trauma.
Okay.
It's a thing, and it's not like I get weird talking about this stuff because it's not like some people, it seems like they want to have a reason to be depressed or be, you know, like, oh, this is probably what I have and things like that. I've been really looking into this because it's basically a lot of therapists, police officers, firefighters, first responders, people that hear about people's traumas repeatedly start to get what's called vicarious trauma. And
Just
it's so
hearing about it.
vicarious, like living through somebody else.
Yeah.
You're doing that. So how can I make an analogy out of this? Like if you're wearing a Velcro suit And everyone's got these Velcro balls that they're throwing at you, and you're running as fast as you can. Not everyone's going to hit you, but you're going to come home with some balls stuck to you.
Right.
That's exactly what it is. But if you do that every day of your life, there's going to be a lot of balls.
Mm-hmm. A lot are going to be stuck.
A lot are going to be stuck, and eventually you're going to be completely covered in balls. Head to toe.
Yeah.
Head to toe.
Right.
Yeah.
And you got to shake them off somehow.
But you can't because they're stuck.
Right.
And you don't know how they got there. You don't know who threw them at you necessarily, but they're on you and they're dragging you down. You now weigh more. Like when you're walking with those weights.
Mm-hmm.
That's vicarious trauma right there. That's what it feels like. To where, and that's the thing. I cherish these conversations, but on my show, we go to a lot of places that a lot of people don't go.
Yeah.
Either they're scared to go there, they don't know how to go there, or it just doesn't come up. For some reason, we end up going there. To where people afterwards will text me like, where do I send the invoice for therapy or something like that? It's like, I'm not a therapist. But I feel like I thrive in that zone. Like that's when I start to think it's real, and like that's when I'm like, okay, let's do this.
Right.
More so than just like the jokey kind of conversations, which I do love, by the way. And I listen to a lot of those. But eventually it catches up to you and you're like, why did I just cry at that commercial? Or like, why did I have to pull over on the way home with like a panic attack? Nothing was happening. And then you think back, like, where's this stress coming from? Where is this like, oh, I just did 4 incredibly dark episodes in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that has something to do with it. To where I started like researching it a little bit, and it's a very real thing. You know, like when cops talk about, and this is not to tie myself to someone who's out saving lives, but where they just get jaded and they just hate everyone because all they do is trash all day.
Right.
The world's not that way, but that's how they see it, and that's because of that.
Right, because that's the only people they're dealing with
Yes.
mostly. Yeah.
And I'm dealing with amazing people. Like they're wonderful people, and I cherish these conversations. But it starts to like eat at you. It starts to like catch on to you. It's crazy. I don't know how to really else describe it, but I started to really realize that this year. And I stepped back. I told Dan, I was like, I'm not going to have 12 episodes in the bank anymore. I'm going to do, 1 a week, maybe 2 a week. That's it. And that's how it's going to go. And that gives everyone else the respect of, we did this episode on a Thursday. It's not going to come out 4 months from now because I have so much in the can.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come out in a nice manner. I'm going to be more well-suited to have the conversation because I'm not burned out from, everything. And that's really helped. Like the last 2-3 months, been just like, I turn stuff down constantly. And that's not a flex, but like I turn stuff down every day.
Right.
And instead of like saying, oh, maybe we can work it in to like try to be nice, I'm not doing it. Sorry. I don't have time. I don't want to. I just have to be honest with people about it. And that's been a big change.
Yeah, because I get a lot inbound as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is it's always one, generally speaking, it's like one type of person. Mm-hmm. It's usually a lot of the inbound stuff is, there are musicians, there are bands that reach out. That's actually how Kyle Gass happened, weirdly enough.
So awesome.
But it's usually like, hey, I make this thing and I want to talk about it. I'm like, I want to do that, and I want to have interesting people on, but the thing about pedals and stuff is that there are so many people doing it that would also like to get on and get the exposure, which I understand, I think is a great idea. The problem is, I realize that about myself. If I do more than 3, I already do Chasing Tone once a week. That's different though, because it's just us goofing off.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Which is fun.
Which is great. There's no real burden there, other than it just takes a little bit of time. So that's fine. But I already do a few a week as is, just kind of standing. And I realize that like I don't have that same, I do have some pretty deep conversations occasionally, but I don't seem to carry it with me in the same way. But I do get like accidentally in a rhythm that's not a good rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, doing this again, doing this again. Like, here we go.
Yep.
And by breaking it up to where I'm only doing like 1 or 2 interviews a week, it keeps it enough in the can that I'm, comfortable, because I do like having them in the can. That's
Yeah.
I get stressed if I'm week to week. That happens sometimes. I'm like, I need to record this week. Hopefully nothing falls through, because sometimes it does. But I realize I put out a better podcast if I only record once or twice a week. It's just better because I'm more into it. I ask better questions. The vibe's better. It's I can cram. I can cram with the best of them if I have to.
Yeah.
But I don't like to. Not even from a workload, but from a literal product quality. If you look at it that way, it's better if I only record a couple times a week at the most.
Yeah.
For me,
dude, it's. I don't think people realize what it takes to. Here's the weird thing, and I hate to put more of a spin on this than needs to be, but I don't know if it's ego or whatever it is, but to do what we do successfully is extremely difficult. To take a show or an idea and make it something that people want to listen to, for one, people consistently listen to is even harder, and to grow every year is even harder. But you think about how many people have conversations throughout the day. How many people can have a conversation on a whim that people are going to want to listen to that aren't having the conversation? Oh man, I wish I could go back and record that bus trip conversation. I would love to hear that again, right? Like, you have to make it entertaining and compelling for people to want to listen to. That's the art form of it, is having a normal conversation, but at the same time that someone wants to listen to, that's just not like, like so many people have conversations that no one ever wants to hear or wants to hear again.
Right.
But then we have conversations that people listen to 10 or 20 times. And, over maybe initially because of who the person is we're talking to.
Sure.
But then they go back to it and back to it and back to it again. And we're in their head all year round. But it's just such a weird thing, like to do that. And what it takes to do that consistently takes a toll on your body. Like, I'm usually in the studio by myself, like doing these. And the studio's like soundproof, boom, boom, boom. So after like the one with, hey, Josh Eppard, right, where we just lost about our parents dying and all that stuff, like I threw up after that episode.
Wow.
Hung up, sat there for a minute, just kind of taking it all in. It was like 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes of just like a great conversation with a very good friend. Some dark places and some like catharsis throughout, tears. But then I literally threw up in a trash can afterwards.
Wow.
Just like expelling all this like worked up energy and like grief and like whatever you
Trauma.
shame.
Yeah.
Like, talking about when my dad passed away, like what I did what he did when his mom passed away, like those really intimate moments are now out in the world. But like talking about it, like I've never thrown up after having a conversation with my therapist, and my therapist is great, but we don't get the same thing out of that. After the Ross chat, I just laid on the floor for a good 40 minutes. Like I pushed stop and just like pushed the chair over and just laid flat on the floor in the dark and just soaked it in. Like, what just happened? Like, what did we just do here? And it was partially like I felt really good about it, and it was just kind of like that, what do you call it? That like, not like Twilight's the wrong word. What's the word? There's like after like a really good thing, there's like this like
Afterglow.
In the darkness.
Yes.
Laying in the darkness. But just in the studio, if someone walked into the studio right then, they'd be like, is
he dead?
Yeah, like what are you doing?
There's a large man on the floor.
I'm laying in the dark.
Yeah.
But I would just lay there and just like think about it, ponder on it. Like, I never used to do that, but now sometimes I do that. Whether it's thrown up or just like bursting into tears or whatever, like depending on what it is. Or sometimes I'll just sit there and just start laughing because it was so funny. What we were talking about was so funny. Or if I, just go spot check, make sure things recorded, and I'll hear it again, I'll just start laughing. But it's all these like super heavy emotions. But happiness is also a very heavy emotion as well, I feel. And so even those ones that are just like lighthearted, funny, I still like sit there and think about it for a minute, I used to schedule them back to back to back to back. So I'm like, this one's running in. I got 2 minutes till the next one. All right, we got to wrap this one up. Click, hey, and like, and then you're into, it's just a weird. Anyway, I can go all over the place with it, but yeah, literally like physical reactions have been happening lately with where things go sometimes, and it's wild.
It's funny because I don't have those same reactions, but I definitely have a reaction, and it's oftentimes. Sometimes it is laughing. Sometimes I get done, and I hang up, and I'm by myself again, and I'm like, "Are you really doing this? Like, is this really? Like, because I always think back to me from 10 years ago, and me from 10 years ago was covered in grease pulling out transmissions, and not wanting to do that, because I don't think anybody really wants to do that part. People like being a mechanic, don't get me wrong, and there was aspects of it that I did like.
Yeah.
But I don't think when you're trying to shove a transmission back into a diesel truck, like a full-blown, like full-size Volvo freight truck, you're not stoked. No one's.
No, you're not. No one is.
Nobody is. Nobody is.
No one.
No one. And so I'm thinking, like, man, I wish I could be doing anything else right now.
Yeah.
And so I oftentimes think, like, what if I could have told myself that this was going to be life back then? Like, this is what you're going to do. We talk about all the work, and that is all entirely true. But still, I'm just like, I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't believe that this is what every day looks like. My family wouldn't believe it either. Like, no, you're a mechanic. That's what you're going to do, and that's what you're going to do until you die. That was my thought process. And so I'll just laugh because I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is so absurd that this is your life now. This is what you get to do. It makes no sense. It does make sense. But me putting myself in those old dirty boots, I'm going like, that doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? You're on crack. That's not going to happen.
But those old dirty boots had a check guaranteed every week.
That's true. They certainly did.
You just had to shove that transmission.
That's right. You just had to shove the transmission.
That's all you had to do.
That's right. And
so the safety behind that is we'll keep people there forever.
It's true. And
no risk, no reward.
It was a journey in realizing that I just wasn't the same as my dad. My dad worked for himself for years, and he liked aspects of it, and I liked aspects of it because I got to see my dad all the time. But he is not designed to do that.
Yeah.
His brain he'll tell you. He's like, I was not good at running a business. I don't like running a business. I like to go to work and come home and not think about it anymore. I get more stressed by being told what I have to do and when I have to do it every day.
Yeah.
We're just wired differently.
Yep.
And I respect my dad, and I really valued his advice, and I still do. But I have to now realize, like, we're just so different. We're just as much as we are the same, because we have a lot of similarities, we are such different people as far as our mental wiring goes. I'd way rather all the pressure be on me. They say, I've said this before, and I didn't come up with the quote, but they say, like, entrepreneurs are somebody who will work 80 hours so they don't have to work 40. And I'm like, that's me, 100%. 100%, that's me.
80 hours on your own accord versus 40 hours on someone else's.
To make the same amount of money. I'll do it. I'll do it. Yep, that's exactly me.
All day long.
All day. And some people don't understand that, and I understand why they don't, because it seems sort of illogical. But it's the difference between, kind of I like to grab the reins. I'm like, here we go. We're going. Like, this is my show.
Yeah.
Like, literally in this case. Like, this is my show. This is what we're doing. I like having as much control as possible, and maybe that's just some unhealthy control issue that I have, but I like...
It all comes back to control. Everything.
I like driving the ship in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I'm very comfortable with, if I crash it into the rocks, that it's my fault, and I'll take the heat for it. That's fine. What I don't like is having somebody tell me what I have to do when it's stupid and it doesn't make any sense. You have to fill this paperwork out. Why? Why do I have to fill out that form? Because if you don't fill out the form, you can't work. Like, I could have done the job 5 times in the time that I filled out that paperwork. Will you just let me do it? I hated that stuff. And that's the oil industry in a nutshell, basically.
Red tape.
I can't stand that stuff. But I don't know how we got here. But
your dad can come into this place that you built off the podcast, this incredible studio, and interview Brian Fallon. You're very similar in that aspect.
Yes, he can have conversations and he's interested. That's the thing. He would actually be better
Genuinely
at this.
curious.
He'd be better at this than he realizes.
Yeah. That's all you need to have is that genuine curiosity.
Yeah,
Speaking of Brian Fallon,
it was Brian Venable, but still, point still stands. Yeah. For clarity. Hey, there's a lot of Brians in my phone.
We talked about both of them.
We did.
That's okay.
Yes.
Brian Venable from Lucero.
Yes.
What's the interview in here? Yes.
Yes.
Freudian slip. Sorry, folks.
Hey, it's all right.
Brian F. Brian F. You hooked me up with him. Were you doing the episode the whole time? Like, this is going really bad. He does not seem interested at all. This is going terrible. Why is this going so terrible? It's a good conversation. Why aren't things matching up? Come to find out, the entire time he keeps looking out the window because a giant tree is about ready to fall on his house. Yeah. The entire chat. And he doesn't tell me till the end. Oh, sorry, this tree's been like, it's going to fall on my house. He just kept like, what's he looking at? Like, what? Am I screwing this up? Hilarious.
Yes.
Absolutely hilarious, because then it got really good. It was doing fine anyway, but I, in my mind, couldn't get it out of my head. Like, he's not having a good time. This is bombing. But he was literally about to get crushed.
Right.
And it was just like, what do I do? Do I cancel?
I'm already in it.
Already in it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Brian Fallon, wonderful human being.
Yes.
If he's listening to or watching this, so I'm glad the tree didn't fall on your house. But he gave me a run for my money. Questioning myself.
What was I saying? I was going somewhere and I went completely. Oh, I was the reactions, the laughing reaction. So, but sometimes, and actually, the one that pops into my brain was actually after. Now that I think about it, after we did this last year, because then we talked for another hour and a half, which often happens after the microphones were rolling, and we were talking about some insane things that we can't talk about.
Yeah.
And I stood out here on the porch of the shred shed for a good while after that, just staring at the hedges and the trees and going like, I shouldn't know about this.
That's right. You know about it.
And I was like, I'm not telling anyone, but I shouldn't know about this. And I don't know what to do with this in my brain.
You get to carry it the rest of your life.
I get to carry it the rest
of my life. That's what you get to do.
Yeah, and every time that person,
You're welcome.
Not that person, but every time I see anything about that artist at all, that instantly goes, that little thing that I'm not supposed to know clicks into my brain, and it's not a bad thing per se, like nothing ended up happening, so it's fine. But it's something I'm like, there's like maybe 20 people on the planet that know about this, and for some reason I'm one of them, and it feels very strange.
There's less than that, and far less than that. And it's like, what's the rose-colored glasses or whatever? Like, you get these, like, when you get to see behind the curtain so much, the world looks like a very different place, and you see what other people see and want to be and want to work towards, and it's like, oh, I don't know about that. Like, you've been awakened a little bit, like where you can like look at things like that a little bit differently, as perspective on what's back there, and what's, when you get to a certain point and you're not happy still, or who's famously talked about Vanilla Ice. Like, once he got super famous and had everything he wanted, he was still bummed out and sad. So what's the point?
Right.
Like, things like when you actually see that happen to people, and it's like, wow, maybe I don't care about the big payday or the
I think
it's weird.
It's in a brighter way of looking at it, and I've told this story a billion times.
That's why I appreciate you. You always have the positive spin as I go down a rabbit hole of hell.
Well, a big moment for me was when we're just going to talk about Gaslight this whole
Let's
episode.
do it.
When I got done with
guitar in here, right?
it's over there.
Oh, it's back there.
Yeah, the mule.
Yeah.
When that first time we hung out with them, we were walking back from the bus, and my wife Lynn, she's like, "They're all just like you," and that clicked in my brain in a lot more ways than just what she meant. What she meant was like, they're all just like, they love guitars and music just like you do.
Yep.
Like they're obsessed over like the way different finishes look and sound, and just like you. Like she meant it as like they're like all guitar players are the same like, type of thing.
Exactly.
And I think that's somewhat true. But what I really realized when she said that, I was like, these are these people who I respect and have obsessed over their art for years and years are just like me. They're just as flawed, they're just as weird, they're just as, they're into the same things in a lot of cases. And that was, I think everybody logically knows that. We know that Jay-Z, still has to eat and poop and wash his face just like everybody else.
Yeah.
But you still see him like, whoa, it's Jay-Z.
Yep.
Jay-Z, when Jay-Z's by himself, he's like, I'm still Jay, like I'm Jay-Z, but I'm just a dude. You don't suddenly transcend and are just some sort of godlike figure when you get famous. You're still a person, and you still have all the issues to work through, and you still have all of the things to deal with, and the pressures oftentimes don't mesh up with the payday, especially with some of the artists that like we love and the scenes that we tend to float in. They're very well known in this weird scene.
Yeah.
But I don't think people realize that it's just not, the payday isn't what you think it is. And all these people are just, not all, I don't mean to generalize, but they're going through the same struggles that everybody else deals with. It's just they're doing it in front of everyone.
Yeah. Jay-Z's back hurt when he woke up the other day. He's at that last little restroom before you get to the thing that lifts you through the stage, having explosive diarrhea because he ate some bad food.
Right?
$1 billion can't stop that.
Nope.
It can't, and you're going to do it, and you're going to be a human being, and you're going to barely get it done in time to pop out of that stage.
That's right.
And start throwing lyrics at people that they can relate to because you're a human being.
Exactly.
That's the only reason we resonate with any of that stuff. If an alien came down and started rapping about space,
It'd be sick, but
it would be, but we'd probably be like, oh, it's got a good beat, but I really don't sympathize with that, or I don't understand that. Whereas a human being can only talk about human things. That's why it makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's why we buy the records, and that's why we go to the shows, and that's why we even care about what they do, is because they're just like us. It's just they're a version of us that we think is better than ours, when a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's way worse.
I use my dad as an example a lot, just because like if he suddenly was famous, he would be miserable.
Yeah.
He wants to be like, he'd rather be on a mountain somewhere where nobody could see him.
Under the radar.
Yeah, like if he was famous suddenly, he would hate it. If I was famous, I wouldn't like that. I've told people like I want to grow the show and I want to have as many people listen to it as possible, but I don't want people showing up at my house. Uninvited. I want Dewey to show up at my house. But
I was invited.
Yeah,
I didn't just show up today. I did just walk to the backyard. I knocked on the door and I was like, wait a minute, are you here? I was like, oh wait, he probably is in the shed. So I started walking around, the gate was open and just like wide open. I was like, oh, okay. And then you popped out. Oh,
yeah, there he is. Hey, I was going to get this chair that I'm sitting in right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is, again, we've talked about podcasting a lot, but I do think the long form chats, like what we have with people like we talk to, it is very revealing because we only view these people when they're doing their thing. We don't think about the fact that they also eat sandwiches.
Yeah.
You see them up there just rocking out and just it's even funny because everyone looks cooler on stage. You see them up there on stage, holding a guitar, like automatically you look cooler than if you were down here.
Yeah. A guitar that someone else handed you.
Yes, exactly.
You didn't put it on yourself.
That's right.
Which takes up a whole other notch.
That's right.
But yeah, it's since the beginning of time. There's been stages, there's been, performers, and it's just in people's blood. Some people. And the rest was, and when I was looking, I was backstage at Atreyu, and like on the stage watching them, watching, and no amps on stage. Everything's in ear for them pretty much. So there was it was just hearing the drums going and a little bit of vocals. It was super weird. I'm not used to that aspect of things now. All the amps on stage had lights in them that were lighting up that I didn't see until I watched a video of it later. But I'm watching them, and I'm watching the crowd, and the crowd's reacting. If Brandon is like, and everyone's like, it was cool watching the energy. But then I'm looking at them, and I watched, the bus they pulled in, and I was like, man, I know what that's like. Like, I'm looking out there, and I'm like, almost every one of these people that spent money to come in here, that's like doing the hey-hos and all that stuff, is going to a much better situation tonight than they are. They're going to go home. They're going to climb into their bed that's not moving.
Probably take a shower.
Take a shower and go wake up in their same town and go back to doing what they do. But they're going to go home again, sleep in their own bed. If they get sick, they can sleep in their own bed. Then I have to be like, in the coffin. And I was just looking like the trade-off. Like, these guys are making money, but they're sacrificing so much comfort
and
to
health.
do this and health, while all these people are paying money to then, and they all want to be on stage. They want to be at home, and no one's going to get that.
Right.
The people that have it will have it. The people that have it will have it at that time. That's it. And I was just having these like realizations in real time, like, that kid with a clawed face is going to go home and wash that off in his shower and go lay down and put his head where he belongs tonight. And boom, these guys are going to maybe get a shower, hop in the bus, and sleep in a coffin like this back to California. It was not desirable.
I think that's the other thing. People have this vision of the tour bus, right? And they see the tour bus and they're like, wow, that must be really great. Without fully realizing, I'm generalizing, this is just your average concert-going fan, not somebody who's like really into this. Probably not even somebody who's listening to the show, honestly. But your average concert-goer that say it's going to see, ZZ Top or some big band that's just like, isn't even generally that into music on a consistent basis the way that people listen to these shows are.
Yeah.
They don't realize that the bus is better than a van, but it still kind of sucks.
Yep. It's worse than a van. Okay, put it this way. Any public place that you go into, for the most part, a hospital, a library, a auto dealership, a tire shop, a restaurant, a bookstore, anywhere you go into, usually, by law, has to have a place you can take a dump.
Right.
And it's free.
Right.
Whereas you're gonna go pay $3,500 a day for a giant RV with a very narrow hallway, a couple couches, a TV, a little mini fridge, where you cannot poop. You can't, unless you poop in a bag.
There's no bathroom on those things?
There is, but you can't poop in them. It's pee only.
Oh.
So you have to do what's called bagging it.
Oh, no.
Where you put a plastic bag in the toilet,
right,
crap in it, tie it off, and run it through the crowd of people and throw it out the window.
No.
Yeah. You cannot crap on a tour bus. Justin Timberlake can't take a dump on his tour bus. He can spend $1,000 on a bottle of water, but he cannot go take a dump on his tour bus.
I didn't know that. I thought, because like I've been in RVs and you can.
Yes.
But not on a bus.
The bus driver is not going to pump the dumper for you.
Can you pump it yourself?
No.
What?
These are leased deals. Like these are rented deals. You rent the driver, you rent the bus. You cannot poop on the bus.
I did not know this.
It's the number one rule. You do not solids.
How did I not know this?
Solids. You'll even say by the toilet, no solids.
How did I not know this? This is like.
Have you ever tried to crap on one?
No.
Then there's no reason for you to know that yet, I guess.
No,
Except for the
because
jokes about it.
I would get off and go to the venue because I'm like, I don't want to go in there. That's a tiny little.
So everyone in that venue, everyone in that arena is going to go to somewhere with a toilet they can poop in and pee in. Or these guys are going to go get in a box that they have to wait till the next gas station. You could crap in a bucket in the van if you wanted to. Put some kitty litter in a bag. Like in a bucket, go to town. But in a bus, you just can't do it.
I didn't know this.
Also, that bus parks, that driver goes to a hotel and goes to bed. You can't move it. You have to call, before Uber, you would have to walk everywhere or get a taxi. The van, you can pop in the van, go to Guitar Center, get some strings, some string joy strings. Or, cables, whatever. Like, oh, we need this. Let's roll to Guitar Center real quick. Worst case, you're going to lose your parking spot. Bus, you can't move it because you can't drive it.
Right.
So you can't drive what's carrying you around.
Even if you could physically drive it, you're not legally allowed to, right?
If you're stuck on an airplane on the tarmac for 5 hours because they can't figure out what's going on, you can still get up and take a dump.
Right.
But you can't fly it. A bus, you can't do any of those things. You're still sitting there in it. You can't get out and you can't take a crap.
I did not know this. How did I not know this? This is
There's a whole podcast called "You Don't on the Bus," or something like that. But that's the thing.
That's wild. That would be a problem for
On
me.
an all-night drive, that's the worst anxiety ridden. What if you get sick? Hope you got some bags.
Dude, definitely got bags.
You're also sleeping in a bed that's smaller than a twin-size bed.
Yeah, they're tiny.
It's smaller than what my kids sleep in. And you're on stage doing it every night, and you get in there.
So it's
Have
really...
you gotten on a tour bus in the morning?
No.
Or had them even open the door?
Mm-mm.
My God. The smells.
Well, there's a lot of people in there.
Yeah, there is.
And a lot of them haven't showered.
Yeah. It's awful. It's awful. It's no existence you want. But everyone wants that. Everyone wants that life, man. Until they get there, and they're like, oh, now I put all my eggs in that basket.
Mm-hmm.
I get to get on stage for an hour and have fun, and then I sit here and drink. And I, or I play cards, or I, do this or that.
That's why I try, and it's things are opening up a little bit as far as like people's availability, But when I know I've got friends coming in through town, if I'm available, I purposely be like, hey, I got wheels. You want to go somewhere?
Yeah.
And
or can I pick you something up?
Yeah, can I grab something?
Yeah.
Because I've known that once I know they're stuck. I just didn't realize that when they're on a bus, they couldn't go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Oh, that's even worse.
I mean, if you poop 2 or 3 times a day, like a more normal person does, you can't just sit on the bus all day. You got to eventually get off of there and go do that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't even hide out in there.
So touring in New York City must be the worst because there's no public restrooms.
No, you find a Starbucks that has one. Like we would always map out like a Starbucks that had bathrooms. That you get the code. You buy something and you get the code. Yeah, it's terrible.
That's wild. That's wild.
Yeah.
Huh. See, I learned things on this podcast.
Dude,
I didn't know.
Google it, man. You cannot poop on the bus. I think there's certain people. I think I'm not going to call anyone out, but there's a certain band on Warped Tour that we were told had a macerating toilet on their bus because their bass player had intestinal issues.
Okay.
It's the only way you could tour, and they spent thousands more on this bus to make that happen. That's the only time I've heard that exception being made.
But they paid for it.
They paid for it big time because the driver has to deal with that. And if it's their driver all the time that kind of understands, oh, so-and-so has this, make it happen.
Right.
But he's going to get paid well for it. If it's over a certain amount of hours, it's an overdrive you're paying for, fuel premiums, also it's expensive. That's why bands are canceling European tours because it's too expensive to tour over there. They can't make any money. Bands are canceling tours over here. It's just logistically, if they have to be in a bus, they won't go back to a van. They can't afford it.
It makes me wonder, right? $3,500 a day.
And that's
right?
a ballpark. That's
But just
basic drives, no overdrives, nothing.
Right.
You also pay for the guy's hotel room and taxi back and forth to the bus every day.
So that's $300, $400 probably.
Yep, because he's got to sleep because he drives all night. And then your bus calls at 3 a.m. means you got to be back there. You're stuck at that bus till it leaves, whatever ungodly hour of the morning, while everyone else is asleep, just loving life. Talking about how rad the show was and how bad I want to be up there playing.
So this is one of those things where I always wonder about with bands and music. Like this industry is notorious for, we do it this way because this is how we do it, and we don't change. To the point of I've talked to some pretty successful people both in record labels and bands about my idea of releasing music as podcasts or on podcasts instead of the traditional way initially. I'm like, you know, I've said this for years. If Taylor Swift does this, music industry changes overnight. Taylor Swift releases an album independently on her own as a podcast, and she could do it as a full big stream. She could break it up into episodes that are tracks, whatever. She could do it any number of ways. Pepsi sponsors that, and they get exclusive for 30 days. Music industry changes overnight. And I've spun that to a few people, more in our realm of things. And the response I get is always like, it's a pretty good idea, but I don't know if we want to try it. And I'm like, if it's a good idea, why don't you want to try it?
You gotta get Taylor.
You know? So I did it myself, but obviously I'm so small that it doesn't matter. But proof of concept, like Sweetwater sponsored that episode when I dropped my album, I made way more, not like I'm Scrooge McDucking through money, but way more than I ever have from streaming from that 1 month. So why couldn't that be done at a bigger scale? If I can do it as the tiniest musician on the planet, how come somebody who is more established couldn't pull something off? The answer is because they get told, oh, that's not how we do it. So that leads me to my next question. If you're a big enough band that you're a bus band, that you're a bus band now, and you're paying $3,500 a day, could you not then, and you know you're gonna be touring, probably till you're retired, don't you think you could buy a bus?
You absolutely could. Some people, I'm sure, do that. Simon Cowell bought a double-decker bus. It's all tricked out, millions and millions of dollars. But you think about...
I'm thinking a normal bus, though.
Well, talking like... So take Korn, for example. So Jonathan Davis on from Korn. And he was walking me through, like, his day-to-day. And he... You know, they get hotels with a bus. So they're in hotels most nights.
Sure.
Unless it's a really long drive. So they have that shower, accident. But all the venues have showers. And the Moda Center has pretty nice facilities.
Yeah.
You have a nice shower. I mean, Blazers are playing. Everyone's playing there. LeBron's playing there. Like, probably wants a good place to take a dump. And you get back there and you're seeing all the facilities. They're great facilities. Every night, great facilities. Catered food, like a specific to your diet. Like there's Korn travels with physical therapists, with doctors, with like all. So Jonathan has a doctor that takes care of him. Also has therapists, like physical therapists. He a massage therapist. He gets massaged beforehand, eats dinner, whatever, gets massaged beforehand, goes out on stage to make it through, and comes back and gets massaged on the cool down. Like they're taken care of very well.
Yeah.
But still, they're not in their own bed. They're in a hotel, which is one of the coldest places ever as far as like comfort. In a hotel, random hotel here and there. But they all have their own bus. So they're not sharing it with everybody. If he has his boys out with him, which he did, you hear him in the background talking, they're on the bus with him, traveling with him. And you can get to that point. I'm sure you could buy your own bus. But why they don't, I don't know.
Well, for them, if they're all going to have their own, that's one thing. I'm more thinking of like Atreyu, actually. It's probably a pretty good example. You know, that I don't know what their finances is. This is me spitballing and looking at it with my like business guy hat on. I'm always like, it seems like if you knew you were going to tour America like every 2 years for the rest of your career, you could make that justification. Whether you buy a bus or whether you buy a massive RV, whatever the case may be.
Bandwagon.
Yeah, and then just hire a driver independently. You know, you can find people to do that. Like, hey, you want to tour with a rock band and get paid, you know, however much, $1,000 a day, $500 a day, $800 a day, whatever it is. You can find a lot of people that would be willing to do that.
Yeah.
And they'd be excited about it. And it seems to me that if you did that, now I'm sure whenever I have these harebrained ideas, there's always something I don't know about that is like, oh, that's why. But I do wonder what that is. Because it seems like at $3,500 a day, roughly, if you were making a loan payment on something, or even buying it cash, whatever the financial situation dictated, it seems like you could do that. But there's probably something I don't know about.
Yeah, they break down constantly. I mean, there's all sorts of problems, but like,
oh, I know.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's easier to just lease them.
It is easier. There's no doubt the system's already in place. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to figure out maintenance. You don't have to.
New bus shows up ready for you to go when it breaks down.
There's that. So that's important.
Yeah.
There's a lot of maintenance and things that there's a lot of unseen costs
Yeah.
to owning something like that, which is why they cost $3,500 a day. The company leasing it has to make money. I guess my point is if the company leasing the buses can make money on that, you would think a decent sized band or artist could also cut that profit out because they don't have to pay that company. They have to make money on that, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, cut that profit part out. Now they're automatically saving what? What's that profit margin look like? That the
If
band
they're making $60,000 a night, whatever, a guarantee, like, yeah, even smaller bands. I mean, 10, 15 grand a night for a guarantee. Like you could back in the day, you could do a bus. Like 1,500 a day or something like that. Like you can make that work, but you got to pay all these people, the crew, and all the.
You have to have somewhere to store it. I know there's like all kinds of logistical reasons, but I do feel like if buses are this big of a problem, you could probably figure it out if you were really determined.
I'm going to ask this the next time I get someone that caliber on.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you just buy your own bus?
Yeah, I want to know.
Tell me why you want to buy your own bus. They'd be like, I did, man. That is my bus.
That is my bus. I own it.
Yeah.
In fact, I leased it
on it this morning.
I leased it back to other bands.
Yeah. I pooped on it this morning.
That's the Jay-Z move.
Yeah.
Buy your own bus, and then he owns the leasing company. That's the Jay-Z move right there.
Exactly. Stocked with his whiskey and his cigars and like a mini bar. Yeah.
It doesn't sound too bad. We've been doing this a long time. Should we see how long we've been doing it? How long have we been doing this? Let's wander over here. I love that I love these lobs because I can do this. I know I say that every time I get up. Well, we better close it down because we got insufficient disc
We better shut it down. We have insufficient
disc. Our main camera stopped recording.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well,
we got insufficient
discs.
guys. Sorry.
Sorry, everyone. Sorry, everyone.
Over 2022.
I wonder how long ago that main camera shut off.
This one?
This one here, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's not recording anymore.
Oh,
just these two. Good thing we pointed
Sponsored by Blue Chews.
Good.
We got insufficient
Discs.
Freudian slip of the century.
Oh man.
Is it still recording?
Yeah, we're recording the audio. I'm just gonna sign off.
Yeah. Peace.
I'm gonna look at that camera. You look at that one.
Peace.
Yeah.
We'll see you.
For Dewey, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck and good tones.
See you.
Wow, if you made it to this point in the video, you are a trooper and you must really like podcasts. If that is true, please check out the audio version of the podcast wherever you get your shows. Spotify, Apple, etc. I've had a ton of cool guests on. Kyle Gass from Tenacious D, Brian Fallon, like we mentioned on this episode, Frank from My Chemical Romance, Dewey a few times, so many awesome people, Yvette Young, Brian Wampler, Robert Keeley, Josh Scott from JHS Pedals. So many folks have been on this show over the years, and I think you will really enjoy it if you enjoyed this video. So please subscribe on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your audio podcasts. I would really appreciate it. Also, do the YouTube thing. Like this, comment on this, subscribe, all that stuff. People have been asking me to put the video version of the show out for years and years, and I'm finally doing it, but it takes me literally 10 to 12 times as long as the audio version. So if you really like this, please let me know that you like it in the comments. Please share this with somebody. Please like and subscribe and all that stuff, because it is a lot of work to do the video version, and I've avoided it for a long time because I have limited time, as I talked about on this episode. But if you like it, I will keep doing it. So let me know, and please do the YouTube thing. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will talk to you on the internet very soon.